Hello and welcome to Evo India, and welcome to our first ride review of the new Ultraviolette X47 Crossover. Now Ultraviolette tells us that this motorcycle is not an ADV, it's not a naked bike, it's somewhere in between, something that's essentially ready and geared to handle anything that our roads can throw at it. Is that the case, and should you consider getting one if you are looking for an electric motorcycle? That's exactly what I'm going to be telling you in this first ride review. But before I proceed to tell you all of that, don't forget to like this video, share it with like-minded enthusiasts, and smash that bell icon to stay notified for all of our video drops. First thing is the styling. Now this does resemble the F77 quite a bit because Ultraviolette has not strayed away from the design of that too much, meaning they've also not strayed away from an aerospace combat jet fighter design altogether. So you still have the same headlight, but below it you have this nice small beak and the front fender. The eagle-eyed amongst you would have also noticed that this wears block pattern tires. We'll get to that in a bit. Then coming up you have this nice little windscreen over here. Moving behind you have your instrument cluster, and just behind that is a wide, much taller single piece handlebar than even the Super Street. And then you're also greeted by this really nice wide reprofiled fuel tank. Is not the right word to use, it's a tank, or essentially what mimics the tank. It's nice, it bulges out to the top, nice haunted shoulders, and you also have this forged carbon fiber-esque finish over here, and you also have a charging port over here. We'll get to that in a bit, but this Ultraviolette tells us is a new alloy. It's not aluminium and it's supposed to be stronger and more rigid. We'll know of that in the due course of time. Then the most apparent change is the fact that the battery is exposed. Unlike the F77, this is not a single fully covered fed motorcycle. This is, after all, a naked motorcycle, a crossover as Ultraviolette tells us. And you also have foot pegs that are now mid-mounted. They're not as rear set as on the F77. And the next big change is this single piece seat. Unlike the split seat setup on the F77, you have these new grab rails, again a different alloy, not stainless steel or aluminum, just like this charging cover flap. The tail light is largely similar. It has the Ultraviolette ethos going on, and one interesting thing you can see over here is this radar sensor. We'll get to that in a bit as well. Now apart from that, the changes over here, again block pattern tires, and the swing arm is different. It's not a cast aluminum swing arm. This is a box type steel swing arm, again to go with the crossover styling, the crossover personality that this motorcycle tries to embody. So how do all of these changes add up? Is it just a visual difference with these small function elements, or is it actually different to ride? Let's talk about that. Now coming to the performance on tap on this motorcycle, you have very familiar figures. Now the battery is the same 10.3 kWh battery if you opt for the Recon variant. The smaller original variant will come with a smaller 7 kWh battery pack. This is the Recon variant, so we're riding the higher battery pack. Now the IDC claimed range, it still stands at 323 kilometers on a full charge on the Indian driving cycle, of course. Now in terms of performance, again you have a very similar motor setup, the same motor in fact. The power figure is 39.45 bhp and the torque figure is 100 newton meters. But considering that this is going to be spending time on rougher roads, Ultraviolette has given it a different final drive. You have a larger sprocket and the gear ratios are also slightly different, which translates to a whopping 610 newton meters of torque at the rear wheel. That's what Ultraviolette claims. And to that end, in terms of the performance figures, they also claim a 0 to 60 kmph time of 2.7 seconds, a 0 to 100 kmph time of 8.1 seconds, and a top speed of 145 kilometers per hour. Now this also does benefit from the Ballistic Plus update that we tested on the F77 just a little while ago. So the performance is snappy, it's quick. It may not have as much top end by way of top speed because of the new final drive, but it's still a very familiar experience. Instant torque on demand, 3 ride modes that are calibrated very well, and with the Ballistic Plus upgrade they all feel a little more usable than before. You don't automatically default to ballistic because combat and glide also have a solid use case for them now that they have a little more oomph. So on that front, that's the performance. It's very usable like the Ultraviolette F77. It's also a lot of fun when you want to do that. So with the performance out of the way, most of the changes over here are when it comes to the battery and the charging. Well, not the battery per se, but more how you charge the battery. Now Ultraviolette has designed an onboard charger, and this is what it works like. One of the biggest innovations on this motorcycle, in my opinion, is not the radar or the dashcam system. It is this. This is the onboard charger. This box that you see here essentially eliminates the need for you to carry a big charging box that you had with the F77. All of that box hardware is now consolidated in this one box, and apart from that, they've not just taken out the internals of that and put it here. What they have created in the process of making this onboard charger is essentially one of the densest chargers in the world. So this here packs in 1.6 kilowatts of charging power. For example, a TVS iQube or anything, that box, which is roughly yay big and yay big, that is only around 600 to 800 watts. So what you're getting here is nearly double or a little more charging performance in this box that's baked into the motorcycle. So essentially all you need to charge this motorcycle is one cable, which connects over here and straight into the wall. This is the new port. This port is similar to that you find on the TVS iQube. Now this eliminates the need for you to carry the box. There's a lot of bulk taken away. This does add around 2.5 kilos to the motorcycle, but I feel like that's a very small price to pay. And with that comes a change in the boost charging facilities as well, which we'll take a look at right now. Now what you see over here strapped to the back of this motorcycle is the boost charger, which is significantly smaller than it was for the F77. This is also significantly smaller than the standard charger of the F77. The reason for that is that Ultraviolette makes use of the onboard charger as well as the boost charger to combine the power delivery and the power output to charge your motorcycle. So what that means is that this boost charger, it now comes with this new plug outlet. So you have this, your standard charger, and this smaller pin for the boost onboard charger. So that connects and it combines and draws power from here as well as here, making this hardware small. And if you don't need boost charging, essentially you just need a small cable. So that is really cool. But one thing Ultraviolette has told us is that the onboard charger is not a standard feature. This is something you will have to option when you're buying the motorcycle. Now the prices for this, which variants get the onboard charger as standard, is something that Ultraviolette has still to confirm. When they do confirm it, I will make a separate smaller video explaining and detailing all the different configurations and amalgamations and combinations that you can get with the charger, without the charger and all of that. So stay tuned for that. Now we move on to the part where the most changes are on this motorcycle, and that is to the chassis. As you can see, you have longer travel suspension at the front and the rear. The suspension travel has gone up from 110 mm at the front and 135 mm at the rear to 170 at both ends. That gives it the ability to cope with our roads much better. Then you also have the rake angle, which has gone from 23.5 degrees to 24.5 degrees. That, along with the new box type swing arm, which is slightly longer than before, has resulted in an increase in the wheelbase as well. This now stands at 1380 mm instead of the 1340 figure of the Ultraviolette F77. Now sitting on it, you also have revised ergos. Now the seat height, that stands at 820 mm. Despite that, it's still fairly easy to flat foot. Now the foot pegs, they are also mounted in a more neutral position. They're not as rear set as on the F77, and your upper body is nice and upright, reaching to a nice tall wide handlebar. Like I said in the design section, this handlebar is wider and taller still than the F77 Super Street as well. Another major change, as you can see, is this seat. It's a single piece unit. It's a lot longer, a little wider. It's more accommodating of a larger rider as well. It does get a little uncomfortable on longer journeys, especially if you're on the heavier side like I am. It's a little soft. I feel like it should have been a little thicker and maybe a little stiffer as well, but that is something that may not be a problem for you if you're not on the hefty side like I am. Now the ergonomic triangle is very comfortable. It's good to sit and cruise comfortably. Bad roads, you don't need to even stand, you can just go through, because the suspension, it's been tuned to be softer than on the F77, so it does cope with our roads much better than the F77 did. Now bear in mind, Ultraviolette is not marketing this bike as an adventure bike, and it isn't. It is an in-between between an adventure bike and a naked motorcycle, and that's exactly how it feels. It just feels more ready to tackle on the worst terrain, good roads, bad roads, everything it takes in its stride very well. And if you were to stand and ride, it's also a fairly comfortable position, just that you don't have something to grip on very comfortably. You need to find something, but if you find a position, it's good enough. Now, like I said, the suspension, it has longer travel. With that also comes more ground clearance. You have 200 mm of it, so even when you are tackling bad roads or obstacles, the speed breakers, the potholes, or even rocks and ruts on the road shouldn't be of your concern, because 200 mm of travel is plenty. You also retain the ability to adjust preload both at the front and the rear. Now the wheels are the same, but the tires are different. You have these block pattern type tires. Now that Ultraviolette claims is good for not only rough roads but also good roads, because this is a new bespoke tire developed by MRF. And if you look closely, the lip of the tire is a proper road tire like lip, and then when you move to the center of the wheel and the tire is when you see the block pattern. So it's a bit of both. We've been riding here on this handling track and it does handle fairly well. The wider bar, it gives you a lot of leverage to turn in quicker. Steering, despite the rake getting a little lazier on paper, it does feel plenty sharp, and it's an overall fun motorcycle to ride. Now in terms of the brakes, you still have the same braking setup as before with the same ABS settings, and you also get the same 4 levels of traction control. Now on my bike, the ABS, it seemed to intervene a little too quickly, and there was a small glitch where even disengaging ABS at the rear didn't really turn it off. Now that could be a unit level issue. We have conveyed this message to Ultraviolette and they are promising that this is not an overall issue. I did speak to a few other people who are riding the motorcycle as well. They said they didn't have any problem with the ABS, so maybe it was just my unit. But even apart from that, the ABS, if you're riding hard especially, maybe it's because of the tires, because they aren't proper road tires, it does intervene a little sooner than you would want it to. But apart from that, all in all, I feel like they have really nailed the crossover brief with the ride and handling setup and the changes that they've made to the chassis. They are meaningful and they do add up to a motorcycle that can deal with a lot more abuse. And finally, in terms of weight, now Ultraviolette claims that the motorcycles weigh the same as the F77 with each battery pack. So the 7 kilowatt hour battery pack, that weighs 196 kilos, and this, it weighs 207 kilos. Now you would assume that because this has lost a lot of the bodywork and all of that, that this would weigh significantly less than the F77. That is true. We had the same question, but they tell us with the tires, with the changes to the swing arm, now it being a steel unit, with all of the other elements that have been added to the motorcycle, they have sort of struck that balance to ensure that you don't go beyond the weight of the F77, but where you lose. So it's a good balance. So where the panels have gone, all the other components have added up to give you more or less the same weight. Even the handlebar, for instance, there is more metal because again it's a wider, longer, taller handlebar. So all of those changes do add up. So you have net the same weight as the F77. Now in terms of features, now Ultraviolette does claim that this is a very feature-packed motorcycle, and to a large extent it is, because this gets radar. You can option it with a dash cam in the front and the rear, and you also have the onboard charger. Now in terms of features, the radar, like I said, it is standard across all variants, all battery packs. Whatever variant of the X47 you get, you will get the radar system, and that will enable rear collision warning. So essentially if someone's coming too close and the algorithm detects that there could be a possible collision, it will warn you by flashing your indicators for the rear, so the oncoming person will know that there is something that might just happen, and it will also be a blaring right over here. Now apart from that, you also get lane change assist. So if you want to make a pass, you want to turn your lane, so you have like a overtake or an indicator on, it will recognize that someone may be in your blind spot and it will warn you of the same via the indicator on the mirror and on your screen. You also have a blind spot detection, so anything that you can't see outside of the confines of your mirrors, it will notify you that there is something behind, so please beware before you make your move. You also have an overtaking notification alert, so basically if someone's flying past you, even if you are planning to make a change, it will warn you saying that there is something, a fast moving object approaching. So that is pretty cool. Now the dash cam, that is something you can retrofit to any variant. I mean, after you buy the Ultraviolette F77, that essentially has a camera at the front, a camera at the rear, and a screen over here. This is a touchscreen, so you can record it from the front, from the rear. You have various recording settings. It has internal memory of 32 GB if I'm not wrong, which can be upgraded via an SD card. That's a pretty cool feature to have. Now, one thing that I feel, like I said earlier also, is a miss is the fact that the onboard charger is not standard, and if you want the onboard charger, you will have to make that decision during the purchase, because this is something Ultraviolette is saying they will not do after the fact. Now for the verdict. Now prices for this motorcycle start at rupees 2.74 lakh ex-showroom. The first 1,000, like we said earlier, will get this motorcycle for 2.49 lakh ex-showroom, but herein lies the caveat. Now that price is for the base model with the smaller battery pack. We don't know what the prices of the bigger battery pack are or what the component costs are going to be. So how much is the onboard charger going to cost? We don't know that yet. How much is the dash cam setup going to cost, we don't know that yet, and all of the permutations and combinations of those prices is something that Ultraviolette is going to reveal at a later date. So as it stands, I assume that net if you were to compare the top end variant of the F77 and the top end variant of the X47 with all the features loaded, you can expect it to cost somewhere between 20 to 30,000 more than the F77. I really hope they manage to get it a little less than that, but at that price point, it is still offering a lot that the market doesn't have, not only in an EV but also from an ICE motorcycle point of view. Most of these features are usable, they're not gimmicks. The dash cam system is something that users will greatly appreciate in case of an accident, in case of tampering or any of that. Also the radar system, again, it's not compulsory, it's not something that people can't get by without, but having it does certainly increase the safety net that you get with your motorcycle. If I were to make a decision, I would rather that they had the onboard charger as standard rather than radar, and maybe have the radar as an accessory or as a variant. But Ultraviolette is prioritizing safety over convenience, and in this regard, and I can appreciate that. So, should you consider getting the X47 crossover? Well, if you are committed to the EV game, if you want an EV, this is a great motorcycle, as was the F77. And this, I feel, unlocks a whole new breadth of ability from the motorcycle, in the sense that it can really handle everything that the roads can throw at it. So Ultraviolette is not making a bogus claim. This genuinely is a true crossover. Yes, there are some naked bikes that will also do everything, but this just feels better adept at handling all of that. There are some issues. The pricing still remains to be a great factor in whether or not you should buy this motorcycle, but that is something that we can answer once we do actually get the prices of all the variants and the components. But in the meantime, what do you think about the X47 crossover? Let us know in the comment section down below.